If you're a Christian, this one might stress you out. There are certain theological phrases and doctrinal ideas that have just become kind of factual in our modern vernacular. So, for instance, when we talk about the concept of ex nihilo, that God created something out of nothing, this concept is absolutely true, that God did create everything because God is the uncreated creator. But do we get this idea from Genesis 1 verses 1 and 2? The answer is, and you're going to be surprised, maybe shocked, maybe angry, the answer is no. You see, the Hebrew phrase that the earth was formless and empty, the Hebrew behind it is tohu va-vohu, and it can also be translated as wasteland and wilderness. And so what you actually have in the opening chapter of Genesis is the presence of created matter, but it's all disorganized and chaotic. And it's in this context that the Spirit of God is hovering over the waters, hovering over this wasteland and wilderness, this matter that's formless and empty, right? And in that context, God creates order out of the disorder. And so what we have is not ex nihilo, God creating something out of nothing. What we have is God creating order out of the chaos and the disorder that's already present. But again, it's not that we don't have God creating all things out of nothing. It's just that if we're going to pull a doctrine or a theological idea, Genesis 1 verses 1 through 2 is probably not the place that we want to pull the concept of ex nihilo. And I think this actually matters in how we read Genesis 1 and 2, because what we find in Genesis 1 and 2 is that God is a God of peace. And you have these thematic elements, and remember that the Bible is written in time, in social, historical, and cultural context. And one of the things that's happening in the ancient Near Eastern world is there are a plethora of creation myths that are out there that are false narratives, but are pulling on vestiges of truth. And so what the biblical text is doing is a polemic. It's an argument against the creation narratives of the ancient Near Eastern world. And where all the Babylonian myths and the Canaanite myths are trying to give a fabricated story of how the world came into creation, here's Yahweh who comes in and goes, nah, this is actually how it's done. And then when you read Genesis 1, in the context of John 1, you find that God is not only the creator of all things and the one who brings order to all things, Jesus is the one who literally holds all things together. So I actually think from a thematic and literary standpoint, this is even more powerful in a lot of ways.